blast off.
Woo!
And immediately Salvo appeared.
Fucking seriously? Okay, well, we're streaming this at this point. If we change the topics back, I'm okay with it, but for the moment, this is okay. Let's give him a minute. But for now, the idea is that we're gonna be talking about the climate and you and whatnot. Yes, that should be interesting. Don't have a direct link to the video at the moment. Let me just get that real quick.
Okay, and then I'll update the Twitter.
I think it's this. There we go. Alrighty then. So, Salvo is existent or not existent?
I think Pine just said that to pull our legs.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, he's not actually here.
A good joke. Anyways, but yeah, if he actually came in here, that'd be really inconvenient more than anything at this point. Regardless. Yeah, we're just setting up right now. So yeah, we're making a last minute change to the topic we're going to be discussing this time, which is now going to be talking about the climate change control and the talk around it in particular. It was going to be about the whole China situation, but I think we're going to be changing that for possibly next week. I don't know if you guys want to mention anything else in particular.
No, I think we're pretty good to go.
All right, you guys are ready?
Yep.
This is Gate's first appearance.
Yes, it is.
It is.
Now
Hello, world.
I'm going to update the stream real quick to reflect that. Ah, there we go. I'm getting rid of Salvo for now because he's not in here. Let me just get rid of the little avocado. There we go. There we go. He's not here at the moment. If he jumps in, well, he jumps in. And he's just going to have to adapt to what we're doing. So, we're going to be talking about the entire concept of... Oh, crap. I have to change the title. I forgot to change the title. Let me do that real quick. Climate control. Yay.
Yay.
Had to change it real quick for the stream because I did not prepare the stream in time for that. All right, cool. Anyways, we're good. Fixed it. Anyways, who wants to introduce themselves first?
Pine.
Didn't we do that last time except Gate?
Yes, but it doesn't matter. We're going to introduce ourselves every time.
Alright, I'm Pines. Hello. The
He
tree.
is the screaming pine tree.
I'm Gate, the Diplotar, and I'm a cat behind a shield.
And I am RPG Grenade, or just RPG. I am the weird floating magical boxing glove with teeth. So, let's get on with this. So, for our first topic regarding this, which is, as I've mentioned before, a little bit last minute, so sorry if it's a slightly chaotic. What is the current state of the climate? We are going to have our first version of this structure, and we're going to start with our hypothesis time. Right, so who wants to start with their hypothesis? Pete? Volunteering you.
Can I unvolunteer myself?
No, also keep the microphone a little farther away from your mouth. This is hypothesis time. If you don't have anything, then Gate, you go first.
Current state of the climate.
Yes.
I
What do you believe to be the current state of the climate?
think it's rocky. If the most recent hurricane has anything to do with it. Also, it's snowing last year we had like freak snowstorms in places that normally don't get snowstorms, like Los Angeles and Hawaii, so that's a bit of a freak occurrence.
Okay, try to condense the hypothesis then.
Fair enough. I'm gonna go back to the original and say it's rocky.
Okay,
It's
fairly. Yeah.
It's not beyond fixing, but it's rocky.
Okay, that's interesting to start with. Pete, your turn. Pete.
Sorry. More or less, just yeah. Basically, what Gate said. It's things are getting worse, and should probably be fixed.
Okay.
By which I mean definitely should be fixed soon.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. My hypothesis doesn't stray too much from your guys' hypothesis in particular, but in my opinion, the current state of the climate is in a state of disarray and confusing weather forecasts, which can be very difficult to discern. And the capacity to fix it remains doable. However, I'd imagine that in approximately 20 to 30 years, if we do not change anything soon, it might become impossible to reverse it within a series of like hundreds of years. If that makes sense.
That totally does.
Yeah, I feel like our hypotheses aren't going to be very differing on this matter, so it's going to be very difficult for us to have an open discussion about this. Regardless, let's go straight to the discussion section. So, what exactly did you mean before when you were describing the snowfall, Gate? I was curious about that. Salvo's in here. Hello. We've changed the topic. You what? Hello? Okay, well, we've changed the topic entirely. Yes, we can barely hear you. We've changed the topic entirely, Salvo.
Sorry, I fell asleep in time.
I knew it. Anyways, well, now we have a completely different topic to take care of, and you're going to have to adapt. So let's go back to hypothesis time real quick. Put back the little avocado in there. Check the supply closet. We got all the stuff in there. And Salvo, you need to create a hypothesis for the first topic real quick. Are you thinking or... Hello?
I'm sorry.
Okay, I can't hear you very well.
I think part of the hate for...
Nope.
Wait, do you want me to write it
First
hypothesis for each
first
one?
hypothesis. Just say it. We're on stream, Salvo.
Oh my god, I'm sorry. God damn it.
We've been on stream for like 10 minutes now. After a 30-minute delay.
I think all the hate for Greta Thunberg...
Nope, we're going on the first question. Remember, it's one topic at a time. We haven't even gone past the first one.
first topic. What is the current state of the climate?
Yeah. It's right there.
Listen, guys, I just woke up. Give me a minute. God, just move on.
All right then. All right, so I've muted him entirely, so for now, because he's not in a state to talk. So what were you saying, Gate, about the state of the snow?
So it wasn't actually last year, it was earlier this year, back in February. Maui received a snowfall that caused power outages, and that's like the first time I've ever heard of any of Hawaii getting snow.
Wait, Hawaii? Gee, what? Seriously?
Yeah, Hawaii. Oh yeah.
The fuck? Seriously?
Seriously, I'll bring up the article.
Yeah, that'd be great, actually, because that's impressive. Okay, in my own case, at least, this is specifically anecdotal in this particular instance because I don't. It's just something I noticed over this year in particular. The winter this year, which, if you guys aren't aware, is between the months of about June and August. It was surprisingly warm, like to the point where I'd never had to wear anything particularly thick to get outside without much problem. Because for me, which is weird for me because usually I freak out in the cold really easily. It's a very, very strange situation. Ah, there we go. Winter storm warnings posted as more snow heads for Hawaii's mountains. What the hell?
Yeah, this was back in February 19th.
Christ.
Or 13th, sorry.
Oh boy. Yeah, I am not very confident in how the climate is doing right now, honestly. It's a very difficult thing to have right now. If it's snowing in freaking Hawaii.
Oh yeah.
Pete, any comments?
I can attest that last year's snowfall was pretty much awful all over the world. And even in my city, like we have things called accordion buses.
Yeah.
And in October, they tried going up hills and then started folding in on themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Wait. Oh, that sounds weird.
Yeah, a bus pretty much folded in on itself, and if I was sitting on either side of the bus, it would be absolutely terrifying. But more to the point, I fear that with these increased snowfalls, with these increased weather freak occurrences, it's going to get to a point that we're not ready for. And I think it's most to do with the whole thing with climate getting screwed over.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. If you look at the Earth Observatory of NASA, which shows a little thingy on the whole temperature change of the Earth and stuff like that over the years, it's like a sudden shift.
Yo, seriously.
Like near the very end there, it's just like bleh. Like sure, yeah, in the 1900s it's kind of warmish, I guess. Africa gets a little bit weird. China's always somewhat warm. And America, then America changes a little bit. Like temperature anomalies more than anything. This is more about temperature changes during those times. And this does not describe the actual temperature exactly. It's more or less the amount it has changed. And near the end, it's not looking good.
It definitely isn't.
Pete, do you have any comments, seeing as you're a tree?
Not really.
Dude, you're gonna have to talk more. Remember, this is a
joke about
podcast.
that.
Remember, this is a podcast. You're supposed to talk. That's kind of the point. because I can't hold it up all by myself.
Pete, you live in the States. How have the forest fires affected you in any?
Oh yeah, you do.
They've mostly been like way farther north than I am in California. They haven't. The recent ones haven't really affected me. There have been like 2 scares in my life. One where like we actually got stuff together and left the house, and because the fire might have gotten there, but nothing really happened.
Jesus, that's actually kind of terrifying.
Seriously. Last year when the forest fires got insanely bad in California, they actually spread up into BC and closer to my neck of the woods. Going so far as Waterton, Alberta. Like last year for forest fires, it was just crazy.
I haven't actually been to any forest fires in particular, honestly, or had any forest fires. It's just so alien to me, the concept of having a forest fire like that.
You're closer to the Amazon than Pete and I. Did
Yes.
that affect anywhere?
In Chile in particular, no, it didn't affect much at all. At least not as far as I can tell. Nothing in particular was obviously changed in particular. It was more like just terrifying news more than something that we could actually see or feel. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
it's a terrifying state to be in near that guy. But we can talk about Brazil's situation on another time.
Sounds about right.
There's also this concept that about how much time we have left for how before we have to like completely return the world back to normal or change our policies to get it back to the state of normalcy, etc., etc. Some people say it's like 12 years, some say it's like 15 years. I'm just gonna post something real quick for the 12-year thing. There's a lot of different degrees by which people think that we have in terms of time left.
Well, the 2 numbers you listed don't give me a whole lot of hope.
I
haven't done nearly enough research to know about how
long. Well, the question is rather, I think it's more of an exaggeration, but not in the same sense that it's like it just won't ever happen, that kind of thing, you know? It's an exaggeration in the sense that it's specific to what they believe to be, God, what's the best way to put this? They put out that estimate in order to determine whether or not it's something that we can easily return to as a species if we happen to change all our policies at once. Otherwise, it would become a much bigger thing because it would eventually become a self-sustaining thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that actually that makes sense, but it doesn't alleviate the seriousness. Like it's the amount of years we've been given is kind of in your face, and should definitely be focused on by world governments.
It's kind of strange because it's like I understand the need for quick change, but at the same time it's like I can't quite understand if it's a good thing or not to scare people into it, you know?
No, that's fair.
It's like it's hard. It's a really hard question because you have to take into account the psychology of the people, the masses, what the hell that's happening in there. etc., etc. But so again, like in terms of my hypothesis, at least, I don't know if you guys disagreed on anything in particular about it, which was the fact that oh shit, we've been in discussion time for a while. Anyways, the whole my hypothesis in particular was more so to do with we don't have too much time left for it to go back, I think, but yeah, things are going bad.
They really are.
It's going bad.
I'd have to look it up and find the source, but I heard predictions that New York will be underwater by 2100.
That's a distinct possibility, yes. The rising tides are a very... I don't know how they calculate it exactly because it's complicated amounts of being able to calculate how much mass of ice there is all around the place, etc., etc., predicting what the temperature will mean to the temperatures to the Antarctic and the North Pole areas and regions and stuff like that. It's complicated math, but I believe it, mainly because I've seen the NASA reports on the decrease in ice mass and the and all the stuff related to God, how do I put it? There's been a lot of research into what happens to the ice mass over time, and they calculate more or less how much is lost, and generally there's an estimated loss of about I'd have to look it up real quick.
Yeah.
About 21 billion tons, I think. Something like that.
Right.
Something along those lines. Let me just get the data real quick because I kind of forgot.
For sure.
Oh, it's actually worse than that. Oh, crap! Fantastic. Antarctica mass variation. The rate of change is negative 127 gigatons per year. It's fantastic when they have to use the million mark. Christ.
Seriously.
Yeah, so it's 127,000 tons per year. Now, to be fair, that's like maybe a centimeter on the coasts of the oceans of the world. At best, you know? But that sort of shit adds up. That shit adds up.
Seriously.
Let me just get the source real quick. There we go. There's a source. So I think we are pretty much all in agreement in this case. There's also like the Greenland mass variation, which is even worse. Greenland is getting
what's that?
Yeah, Greenland, it's actually 286,000 tons per year decrease.
That's a big yikes.
Yeah, it's a big yikes. That gives a little bit more it's concerning. So in that sense, I wouldn't be too surprised if New York was underwater by then. At least in the sense that all of the current existing streets would be underwater, you know?
Yeah.
Perhaps not the buildings, but at least the streets.
I hope not the buildings.
Oh god, if it's the buildings, we're screwed. Like, most people are screwed. I might be fine in my city, but Jesus, most people are not.
Thankfully, I'm deep inland, so I'd be safe.
To be fair, though,
my friend
2,100, I'd be like 120. Regardless.
Yeah.
Anyway, you were saying?
My friend's actually even saying now that he wants to buy properties up on the northern provinces of Canada. That he's gonna buy them now, and in 100 years they're gonna be worth a lot more than they are now because he predicts that with climate change going as fast as it is now, the northern provinces, which are normally cold most of the year, will be like Hawaii and be hot all year round.
Okay, I'm not sure what he based that estimation on, but it seems like a fair assessment, assuming that nothing changes. So he's assuming that nothing's changing?
No, he's assuming big,
Assuming what?
like if the polar ice caps, like if the ice caps melt majority by then, the colder regions of my of my country will be tropical. I wouldn't put much weight on it.
Yeah, I was gonna
It was
say,
mostly
like,
said.
I was gonna say, yeah, it doesn't really sound incredibly plausible.
No, it was probably mostly said as a joke, but it'll
But I can
definitely be a
see
little hotter.
people doing that, yeah, like slightly northern towards the North Pole, I guess, just a little bit. Also, he wouldn't live that long, so
Exactly.
chances are he wouldn't live that long, so it's probably a joke.
For sure.
Okay, Pete, what are your thoughts?
I put a comic in this.
I know you put a comic in there, but no one can read it right now.
Of Earth history with the average global temperature.
It's XKCD, right?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah, it's a topic, that's for sure. Like, I want to get to the next topic soon, so I think we can just wrap this part up in particular, don't you think?
I'm pretty sure. I think we're all in agreement.
We're very
climate-
much in agreement because it's not. We don't really have much we can say against it at this point.
Exactly.
That's the problem. Our conclusion, I think, is just that climate change is happening because we trust the scientists and their information regarding it. We have seen the changes for ourselves. We look into it throughout our lives because it's been a thing for our entire lives.
And I mean, Hawaii got snow last year, so
That's a thing that happened. I think there's some weird. There's actually some deserts in like the Sahara that actually got snow too.
I think I heard that.
Yeah, that was creepy. That was really creepy.
So there you go. There's not really any
The hurricanes
ability
too.
to.
The hurricanes too.
Oh yeah, no.
The constant
The
changes.
Bahamas this year, I feel so bad for them.
That sounds terrifying. Like, yeah, I had to do this thing for like the GJ Open thing where I had to try and predict how many level 4 or higher hurricanes there was going to be within the next estimated few months. Or like the rest of the year rather. And
Man, if you
I did not like having to answer possibly 4.
I bet. And if you had said there was going to be a big level 5 hurricane, you would have been spot on.
Well, I mean, it was asking for level 4 or 5. Like, was it level 4 or 5? Let me check real quick. I have it in my account here. Get on that real quick. Let's see. Oh, I got a good Briar score on that thing. Anyways, forecast history, where is it? Come on, where's my other ones? Okay, there we go. I got some. Where is it? Ah, yes. I can't find it for some reason. Oh well, that was a waste of time. Oh no,
Yeah.
here it is. Here it is. Between
Oh.
between the 5th of July and the 30th of November of this year, how many Category 4 or above hurricanes will occur in the Atlantic Ocean according to National Hurricane Center? And my forecast was, I suggested that there was likely going to be two or one hurricanes of that measurement. And it seems that one has come to pass, so I'm going to have to modify that real quick, honestly. Because that's totally a thing that just happened.
Seriously, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to have to like completely just decimate the 0%, like the zero hurricanes thing. And raise
And I
up
don't know
another
what
one.
the situation with the Japan typhoon was.
Seriously, that's a little concerning as well. Anywho, it seems that we agree that there's basically nothing we can say against the science of climate change and the evidence surrounding it. For further evidence on climate change, you can visit the NASA website on climate if you want to learn more specifics on the matter. Now, I posted the evidence, but this goes straight to the next topic. Why is climate change denial a thing? Pete, do you have anything to say on this? We're going to start with hypothesis time once more. So, if you have anything in particular to say about it, go ahead.
In my particular case, my family is creationists, and a lot of the evidence is based on measurements from things that are further back than they believe the Earth existed. So I've thought about this since changing, and it's surprisingly difficult because a lot of the evidence just automatically is thrown out for other reasons.
Okay, so
Because
what's your hypothesis then? If you can try to...
I don't know about the reason that I've seen. There are likely others, but the reason that I've seen is just that due to other things that they already believe, the evidence is already thrown out for other reasons, and they don't necessarily have a grudge against the idea itself, but the measurements, they don't like the methods of getting there.
That's your hypothesis then? The reason for climate change denial. That is
one reason, I think.
That is one possibility, yeah. Okay, what about you, Gatti?
I think it's mostly due to fear, because I work in retail, so a lot of my customers, they kind of just brush it off as in, it's not happening. Last year was warm, this year's warm. I'm not noticing a difference. So I'm gonna base the denial mostly off of the fear or lack of will to change their current habit.
Is that all?
Yeah, like I really can't add much more. It's mostly from my experience, because I'm not in denial about climate change, but a lot of the customers I have in retail, that they act like it's not happening.
Right. My hypothesis for why I believe climate change denial might be a thing is that I believe that there is a large segment of them which is, as Pete described, religiously based, right? They disbelieve in the capacity for the measurements to be true, either because they don't believe the Earth is that old, or because they believe that the Earth is immutable and something that only God can modify, therefore humans have no capacity to modify it, and anything we modify is perfectly alright in God's eyes, etc., etc. That's one portion of it, which is a fairly large portion. The other portion, I believe, has to do with a bit of the fear factor that you mentioned before, because there's a little bit of the concept of denial based on fear, which is where people would generally prefer not to believe something that they're scared of. And the third, and I think this is an important portion as well, is the conspiracy side. There's a conspiracy side to the talks where there's a lot of people in the groups that seem to think that scientists are trying to fabricate this concept of climate change for their own purposes, all of which I'm not sure what they would be, but as well as there is some vested interest for a lot of these people in regards to maintaining the current state of the world's fuel emission format and like how they use energy and whatnot. That's my extremely long hypothesis.
Dig it.
Religion, fear, conspiracy, other vested interests.
Oh, big on that conspiracy, like chemtrails and all that.
Oh, God.
The government is.
The government is what?
The government is the reason for climate control, and they're using it as for population control and all that.
That is generally what they tend to believe. I would call bullshit on all that stuff, obviously.
Obviously.
Because, like... Okay, I'm not even going to go bother with the chemtrail thing. The entire issue with... Well, since I guess we're breaking it down into these 4 parts, because my hypothesis seems to include both of yours. We don't seem to have much difference in our hypotheses here either. Except for like the inclusion of one over the other. So I guess we should go one at a time?
Yeah, no, that sounds good.
Okay, so Pete, you explained what it is that your family seems to believe about it. So can you explain further?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what else there would be. Like, it's not... I'm not sure what specifically you're asking.
Like, are there any specific religious credences that they're referring to whenever they deny climate change evidence?
Mostly just, like, the age of the Earth. The measurements can't be true because they indicate that the temperature was a certain thing before 4000 BC, at which point the world began. So...
Okay, so then why the hell do they admonish the measurements from after that point?
It's mostly...
Because the statistics are still there. Even if the Earth just suddenly popped into existence at that point, it's really hard to deny, even if just by looking at the data.
The idea is that the measurements are flawed because they are measurements that the measurements rely on incorrect assumptions, and that they're all flawed because
Then what about the measurements over the past 150 years or so, which have been done in real time by actual scientists and recorded, which had nothing to do with measuring the past state of the world, just the current state in the present? How do
I
they
think that
justify
after that it's just a... I think after that it's just a matter of, like,
Committing? Just committing to the idea?
Committing, and that that we're still within a reasonable amount of variation. That things are being overblown, and that it just fluctuates and will return to normal eventually.
So that sounds like conspiracy theory. Because if they say it's being overblown, then that means they don't actually understand what the data is saying, which is saying that it's having a huge amount of variance.
Yeah, I don't think they've exactly done a lot of research on it.
Okay. See, that is possibly should have been included in my hypothesis, as the they don't know jack shit part. You know, that should have been the other portion I should have mentioned. That would have been useful to point it out.
Yeah, from what Pines was saying, it almost seems like if a source says that the Earth was older than 4000 BC, the whole source itself can't be trusted.
Yeah, exactly.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. And, well, we could talk about creationism and all that stuff on another day, but for the most part, I think we generally agree that it's pretty much bullshit at this point, and therefore there isn't too much to stand on when it comes to the concept of evolution and climate change being somehow related, which it's not, and trying to justify their disbelief based on that alone is kind of silly in my opinion. So I guess that's part of it. Then there's also the other religious part, which talks about the whole, well, God gave us the earth to do whatever the hell we want with it, and anything we do is perfectly all right, and we can't break it because God made it perfectly. That's another pretty common one where I don't exactly know what part of the Bible.
I've never heard that one.
Yeah, it's the one that's for not creationists, Pete. It's one for conservative not creationists, generally. And I've heard that one a couple times. It's kind of silly, but it's once again based on a religious doctrine which is specifically only tailored to one or two types of religion: Christianity and I believe Islam. And those are like the only two religions that really state that is the case, which puts into question the validity of their own belief of the religion, because how can one religion know for sure, that sort of thing, yada yada yada. We can get into that some other time. I don't know, do you guys think that there's any validity with basing it off of a religious view? Because I sure as heck don't.
Personally, me, no, but I know some people it's like going to eat. So religion says I should eat this on this day, not this on that day. It's sort of like that. So it's almost like second nature in a way.
What about you, Pete?
To some people.
Wait, I'm not sure what, for some reason that isn't computing.
There we go. I think what he was saying was that for a lot of people, it's pretty much second nature at this point to think in those terms, so they don't really understand how to process the world without the religious view.
Exactly.
However, does that make it valid? That's the question.
Again, to me, no.
I mean, if the religion were hypothetically true, if you could prove that the religion was true, and if you could prove that the religion said that climate change wasn't real, then that would be a valid chain of logic, but I don't think anyone really has that chain of logic.
Nor do I really think anyone has ever been able to show that it says that climate change isn't real. Like, I don't know many people who have said that it says climate change can't be a thing. They just assumed that as a conclusion through a specific text that said something about God creating the world perfectly or something and immutable to man or some little crap like that, essentially. Like, it was just that little bit there that was like so ugh. Yeah, so I guess none of us really agree that the religious part of it makes much sense to actually even consider.
Well, on your last point, I actually wanted to add in, these religious documents say that man can't do harm to the planet, but if that's the interpretation, that's what people read. But that interpretation's pretty wrong. And furthering my point, that's not to say God, if there is one, isn't using climate change as a way to
Test
do
us?
rid of us. Test us
Or get
do
rid of us? Yeah,
Well,
that's true. That is true. Like, you could totally just come back at them with that and freak them out a little. I would say test, because otherwise they might just submit to doing nothing.
Yeah, test works.
A test is probably better. Like a test for all of humanity or something. So, yeah, I think that's one we can just sort of throw out the window at this point because none of us really believe it at all. And simply put, none of us believe in the religions. It's just that simple. None of us believe in the religions, so we can't really take that point seriously unless they are proven to be true first. So, unfortunately, we're just going to have to throw that part out entirely as a consideration for the opposition. But that does seem to be a telling reason as to why so many people are climate change denialists, in a way. But what proportion do you guys think is caused by that? Like what percentage do you think is caused by that particular religiosity statement?
I think Pines would be the better one to answer this.
Well, I mean, we all have to answer this, I assume, because we can get a good gauge on it.
Okay, I'm gonna say somewhere in between 35% and 65%.
That's way too big of a range.
Okay.
You narrow it down a little bit. Try to be more specific. At least a 5%.
15.
5%
Yeah,
difference.
5% works. Even 10% maybe.
Well, I said 5%
it.
difference, not 5% of the people.
Okay. 30%?
You know what's funny? I was thinking 30% the whole time. Like, so I was gonna say somewhere between 28 to 33%, more or less. That's what my estimate would have been. What about you, Pete?
I'm really not sure. That's not something. It's generally just something that wasn't. It's not something we discuss. So.
Well, I mean the question is, why does climate change denial exist? So we're trying to figure out more or less a percentage rate of the different things that we believe to be the causes, right? So we're trying to figure out more or less what we think the percentage of people or ideas are affected by this particular aspect. So,
but I haven't really heard a lot of people talk about it.
Oh, that's
so
fine
I'm
then.
Not
so
really...
estimate it low. That's the way it works.
I mean, I haven't heard a lot of people talk about climate change at all. This, or at least not climate change deniers. I haven't heard a lot of talk there, actually.
That's maybe because you don't live in a community that talks a lot about that stuff. Like, do you look online for these sorts of things? Because it's everywhere.
I do not.
Yeah, that's the thing. You probably should actually become more worldly in these things, because otherwise you're not going to be able to estimate a lot of things.
Yeah, It's to the point where the Green Party for my government is saying that they want to get rid of oil burning cars by 2030.
Yeah, that's a very powerful position, which is if they really wanted to do that. That's very difficult to do, but interesting.
Yeah, seriously.
How noble it intends to be. But at the same time, Pete, just look at any conservative party for like in the past 10 years, and until like the subject of our next subtopic came along, almost none of them ever spoke out against it. Recall the thought pile and the speech curve. Okay? Recall that. Now, the speech curve, it used to be, in the conservative camp, at the very least, generally climate change denial. It's been that way for as long as I can remember, even looking at politics in general. Just in general. That's how consistent it has been, for the most part. Now, there's always been variation in opinions on the right, and usually on the left, there's a general acceptance of climate change in general. So I think, Pete, it's just a matter of you should look into it more. That's basically it. I think that's all I was trying to get at. There's a lot of people that do that. There's plenty. And with the recent events of like talking about it, there's been a lot of people who come out as denying it in some way, right? But that's going to be for our next topic, I believe. So, Pete, you're not going to give even an estimate of 0, maybe 5%, or do you just you'd rather sit out of this entirely?
I don't know. Let's see, the percent of people who deny it specifically for religious reasons, that I suppose just like guessing, I'd probably go higher than 30% actually. I would think that a lot of it would be inspired by loyalty to a cause, whether political or religious. So maybe like probably closer to at least 40%, just as a guess.
That's fair. I think that is a decent way to put it. So averaged
For
out,
sure.
it'd probably be around 34. Okay, well, we seem to believe that approximately that much. Now, it's important to note that these can overlap. These can always overlap, so keep that in mind too. Now then, let's go into the possibility of what was the second one I pointed out? The one that Gate brought up, right? The fear. Fear.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one because it's more to do with like existential dread more than anything, right?
Yeah, mostly, yeah. Burning up. And that's what a lot of fear-mongering for the deniers use, right? They use fake estimates to say, oh, the Earth's not going to burn up, or it's not going to burn up in your lifetime, so why should you worry about it? Sort of thing.
Yeah. There's a lot to be said for considering the fact checking and where they're getting the data from, because a lot of the time it's just a lot of, I found this on the YouTubes and it said that climate change wasn't real, so it's totally not real. Insert Steven Crowder video here. So it's like, it's hard to say. It's one of those weird situations where generally I don't believe that there's people who can believe things because they want to, but I do believe that people are capable of believing something when they're afraid of the alternative.
No, that sounds right.
Like the whole comfort thing, as demonstrated by you, is that you can sort of believe in something through comfort alone.
Absolutely.
So,
And
yeah.
and even as a recently turned atheist, I still believe in the comfort zone.
Right? It's the comfort zone. That's a nice way of putting it. The comfort zone, or the comfort belief zone. I think it's something we should think about like more seriously, because it's, personally, I'm incapable of that. Personally, I always go back to
Fair
that.
enough.
I always go back to that stupid thought of, but I can't believe this. This is nonsense, right? So the comfort belief zone is something that I've basically eradicated from my mind at this point, unless it's like something super specific.
That's fair.
And
But no, I totally feel like you're right on that. Is that they're in their comfort zone, and they surround themselves with the comfort zone. So ignoring any videos on YouTube that would go against their comfort zone and in favor of videos that don't.
they fill their comfort zone with their biased pillows and their prejudiced teddy bears. If we're gonna go with analogies, go all the way, man. Just I want biased pillows to be a thing.
Pillows. Biased pillows. That's sweet.
I love that. I want it. I want the biased pillows. Can we market that? Anyways, maybe someday. Pete, what about you? What do you think about the whole concept of like fear and existential crisis? Being the expert at existential crises.
That motivation is one that makes more sense to me personally, because I do get frightened about the future.
Right?
Are we doing percent?
Are we doing what? No, not at the moment.
Are we doing the percentage?
We're just talking about it for now.
Yeah, that one, that makes sense. I can see why that happens.
Yeah.
It's not a good thing, but
Right. It's like, it's almost feels like it's a complacency thing at that point.
It's almost like following propaganda, like anti global warming propaganda.
I suppose. Yeah, as I mentioned before, it's more of a comfort thing. So it's very strange that I wonder how much cognitive dissonance they must be feeling, because like I feel like these are the groups of people I feel the most sorry for. Like out of all the ones we've mentioned.
Fair.
Right?
We haven't really even delved into conspiracy theories.
Yeah, we haven't touched that one yet. We're still on the whole just the fear thing. So yeah, like I feel like the fear people are the ones that I really wish I could help more. Those are the ones that I feel like could be on the possibility of changing their minds.
Agreed.
But they're just so scared, and that's not something that's a good feeling to have. And they're the reason why I am uncertain of the near fear-mongering format in which we're trying to promote the fixing of the climate.
Yeah,
Because
totally.
I don't want to scare them off, you know? It's like it's worrying. Like I want to help them understand the situation, but if they're freaking out about it, it's going to be nearly impossible to get their primitive monkey minds to stop freaking the fuck out and start using their rational minds.
What about blame shifters?
Blame shifters. What do you mean by blame shifters? Can you specify that a bit more?
Like it's split into two types. Like, oh, I didn't start global warming. That was the fault of the previous generation. Or the other one being, why should I care about global warming? It's not going to affect me. It's the worries of the next generation. I
believe I could be totally wrong on this, but I believe they fall into the camp of the don't know jack shit camp.
Fair enough.
I'm not sure about that though. If you disagree with that, that's fine. That's what it feels like to me.
I almost feel like both it fits into the fear because it's like I'm too afraid to do anything.
I'm too afraid to accept it as well. Like it's like an acceptance of particular parts of it.
Definitely.
Huh. Yeah, I guess it would fall more into the camp of the fear thing if you think of it like that. It's more of it's a different kind of comfort zone. They have their own set of pillows. Yeah, they have their own little pillows. Probably less, probably more. Not sure. But they're different types of pillows. So, that's an interesting way to think about it. Yeah, the blame shifters are weird. But at the same time, it feels like a lot of the people who accept climate change, because these technically aren't people that are climate change deniers, right?
Right.
There's, yeah, I guess we can go into that. But let's get through these first.
Absolutely.
Wait, actually, no, now's the best time, actually. Before we continue on the other ways in which climate change denial seems to manifest itself, we can talk about the format in which the fear factor affects people who actually do believe in it. We can go that route just a little bit, because these are the people that are like Ben Shapiro, who state that climate change, man-made climate change is a thing, but we don't have to worry about it, that kind of thing, you know?
No, that's totally it.
Or yeah, like or people that are, I mean, like even I count in this camp a little bit, because it's like I just don't do much about it. And I feel really guilty about that, considering I do very little in terms of what I am capable of doing.
I feel like the guilt could end up being becoming a motivational tool that could push you to do stuff.
Yes.
Like until recent years, I didn't really care about recycling, and now if I try to recycle as much as I possibly can, just because I felt guilty before. I see people around me doing it, and it's like, maybe I should too.
Yeah, it does manage to make a small change in the world, at least. Like, it gets the consciousness primed for these kinds of ideas.
Then again, when I wasn't recycling, it was because I was a teenager, so yeah.
Pete, what about you? What are your thoughts on this?
I agree. I'm not sure what else to really say.
You're gonna have to get used to saying more at some point, or like expounding on certain points if you can. Yeah, it's just that there's this group of people who accept it, but also just don't accept parts of it out of either fear or one of the other things we're going to look into, because it's not just fear that can stop people from believing in certain parts of it despite accepting climate change, you know? There's many other factors. So, okay, now we're going to go, I think we should move on to the percentages. What percentages do you think this affects the belief for people who deny climate change?
I'm going to go with 55%.
Yes, recall that there is an overlap in the percentages. Like, certain people can have multiple, so it is fair to have it be like more than 100% in this case, just because of that.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, I think it's like 80%.
Think of it more like a Venn diagram. Think of it more like a Venn diagram with a bunch of circles.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's fair. But yeah, no, I think the fear aspect really affects people, and that's why they're in denial.
So you say about 55%. Okay, what about you, Pete?
Probably also a little over 50%. Maybe more like 60.
60.
Well, in which case I have 100% of people accounted for, huh? Well, except overlap.
Recall, it doesn't matter. The overlap thing, it's more like a Venn diagram. So you don't have to worry too much about that. We're just
Pines, this
we're just giving a number more
This
than
isn't-
anything.
isn't The Price is Right. You don't have to keep going over my numbers.
I'm not sure, honestly. Like this is hard because yeah. I'm thinking how it like overlaps with a couple of the other ones we're gonna be talking about first. So I would put it at around 48%. I put it a little bit lower. Like I feel like it just doesn't apply as much to the general populace who are generally denying this, right? Like there's probably plenty of people who do, but it's at the same time it's like the people who actually talk about it, I don't believe generally are those people. Or at the very least the overlap isn't that high. And
Fair
to me in particular, I don't believe that overlap particularly affects the religious folk, but I do think it affects the conspiracy folk. If that makes sense.
No, that totally makes sense.
And I doubt it affects the people who have vetted interests. So that's why I put it a little bit lower. So that's my reasoning for that. So I guess about 50% is our consensus on that, Venn diagram wise. Okay, now let's get into conspiracy theories. These are some interesting ones. What are y'all opinion on these guys? People who say the government is trying to change the weather and make us dumber because of it, and President Obama and Trump can totally not Trump, because Trump is their savior. President Obama's could totally change the weather and create hurricanes with his magical military machines.
I appreciate the slight accent you added.
I was trying for just a slight amount.
Would have found those machines too if we stormed Area 50.
If it was stormed Area 51. God damn. Along with Halo 3.
No, Half-Life 3.
Oh no, sorry, Half-Life 3. I got confused. My bad. They must have gotten to me. The chemtrails. Must have been the chemtrails, man. No, but seriously.
Do you think Flat Earth could actually be another conspiracy into play here?
Excuse me? One more time?
Do you think Flat Earth theory could be a part of the conspiracies in play here?
Yes. I believe that they would be a factor in this in total, honestly.
I'm not. Wait, you lost me. How is that?
Because the thing with flat earthers is that they're a bit of a conspiracy theorist group, but also a religious group. So it kind of.
I'm now slightly more
lost. Oh, okay. Flat earthers are weird because they tend to believe the earth is flat based off of biblical phrases that said about the earth being flat or the horizon being flat or whatever. And there's another group that believes it's flat because of conspiracy theory reasons. Because the government is lying to us and saying that it's a globe because reasons. They never explain why it's beneficial for the government to say that it's a globe, but they say that. So, but the thing there is there's probably an overlap between the two because they're conspiracy theorists, and the religious folk who would generally believe in all those things combined would probably generally deny things like science and climate change. You know?
Well,
okay, yeah. So you're just saying there's probably overlap
Yeah,
between climate change and island.
And flat earthers, yeah.
And let's face facts, they deny the curvature of the Earth. So, a concept that the Earth is getting hotter, and snow is
My battery abruptly dropped very much. I don't know why. I might have to leave. Like,
I warned
sorry,
you.
it
I
was
warned
higher.
you. I told you. You should have had like a
I'm sorry.
charger. You should never trust your
It
phone
was at
battery.
like 32%. Like 2 minutes later, it was at 14%, and
You
then
should
10 seconds
never-
later, it was at 4%.
Never trust your phone batteries. Never trust the phone batteries to last as long as they say. They never do.
It usually lasts longer, even. I don't know if it happened. I'm sorry. I think I have to go.
Ah, crap.
ah.
Well then, I guess. What now?
I mean, we could continue going.
I guess so.
It's either that or we do a part 2. But I mean, you've also said before that you're willing to just scream into your microphone for a couple hours.
Maybe not scream, but definitely something along those lines. Yeah. Okay, we can continue. Just give me a second here.
May as well finish up the cast.
Yes, exactly. So, how do I put this? The conspiracy people, I don't know how to take seriously.
See, the conspiracy theories seem to be like overlapping a lot of it, because you've got the religious aspect, you've got fear aspect, because they probably use fear mongering. Definitely with chemtrails. Chemtrails are definitely an installation of fear. There's also loyalties, like if let's say celebrities come out saying that they're a flat earther, people who follow those celebrities would probably also start becoming a flat earther.
That is, I don't think that's really the case in a lot of places, you know. I believe that generally those celebrities lose a lot of fans immediately and gain a couple more.
Well, that you know what? That's a fair point. When what's her name? Kat Von D, ex-girlfriend of Deadmau5, came out as a anti-vaxxer. Reddit was going nuts, and not in a good way.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I guess that can happen sometimes. It's a rare case.
Well, there's also you were upset when you heard Pepper Potts was homeopathy.
Yeah, that was concerning. That was very concerning indeed. Not just homeopathy though, just like all alternative medicine in general. Crystal healing, man.
Well, there you go. So I wouldn't say that. I think if a celeb comes out believing this, they do lose a lot of popularity. So maybe not that, but definitely fear mongering and religious.
It does seem to be true that they overlap a fairly large amount. So, the thing is, I don't understand why the first thing they go to is to distrust scientists and to distrust basically everyone but themselves.
Probably because they think they're right. So if science is speaking out against them, they're wrong.
Yeah, but it turns into a case of I don't understand it, therefore it must be false, and that is something that I just can't comply with. Like, mentally speaking, it's like expecting a child to say that you're wrong because they don't understand how multiplication works. Therefore, multiplication must not be real. It's that level of utilization of their faculties a lot of the time.
True.
It's very much not something that I would particularly parse well with, because conspiracy theories derive their concept off of over analyzing and producing correlation and extrapolating it to mean causation a lot of the time, while maintaining high doses of skepticism for everyone except for their own minds, which they, for some reason, trust adamantly. I don't even trust my own mind.
No, that's fair. I would. You really can't. Like, I don't know.
I don't even trust my own
that,
mind. It's really weird.
I posted a article from Scientific American.
Ah, yes.
About what
chemtrails really are. I always figured it was water vapor, man.
Yeah.
Because that's what they always look like to me.
You know, I just kind of figured that it was just excess gas, like how a car produces it.
Or that.
So,
could be a mix. Anywho, yeah, I don't think we're gonna get much farther on the conspiracy thing. We don't seem to think that they make any sense whatsoever.
yeah, no, definitely.
Because it's just there's too many factors at play there that would have to align perfectly in order for everyone to believe that situation. And in the modern age of information, where we can find basically any idea for anything and learn how to do basically anything at any time, what are the chances that we'd be able to keep something like that secret anymore?
Area 51, man.
Yeah, my guess is the shit that's in there is like fancy new jets and stuff that are used for war and not much else, because the military, quite frankly, isn't that creative.
No, that's fair.
They're not the creative types. They're the kind of types that just try shit out and see what works.
Exactly. I mean, if the nuke tests have anything to say about it, yeah.
Yeah, probably. It's one of those strange situations. It's hard to ever really... It's hard for me to ever really put myself in the mindset of a conspiracy theorist, because that would imply throwing away everything that I believe in a moment's notice, including my way of parsing information, which is very, very different from theirs.
Oh yeah.
Even
when I'm brought
so much. Yeah.
Even when I'm brought a conspiracy theory, the best I do is I kind of look at it from their perspective for about 3 minutes, and then I just shake it off, because
it's too many assumptions without much evidence to back it up.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. Like they assume that the assumptions that they make in their mind are somehow infallible for whatever reason, and I just don't understand that mindset. It's like paranoia.
Yeah. Back in the fear mongering section.
True. What? Okay, well, I don't think we're gonna get much farther on this. What do you say is the percentage rate Venn diagram thingy on what the climate denial
Conspiracy theorists have to add?
Yeah, has to do with it.
I'd say less than 5%. I'd say maybe 3%.
From what I've seen Honestly, I think it's much higher than that.
Okay.
Because there's people who are both in the religious camp and the conspiracy theory camp and the fear camp, and it's just like a whole bunch of things where they can be in both, neither or whatever, and there's a lot of overlap. So I'd be more on the side of about 20-25% personally.
Okay. So roughly in the same area as the religious camp.
More or less, because it seems like the people who have a tendency to be more religious in these senses would also have a higher tendency to accept their own intuitive grasp of reality as somehow factual and would generally base their ideas off of that more readily. They have a tendency to correlate causation, to conflate correlation with causation, you know? So it's the kind of thing where I do believe there's a lot more overlap than we are letting on.
Okay, yeah. No, 25 actually does sound better now that you've explained it that way.
Okay, well, fair enough. Yeah, well, but what about the last one? This is the one that I think has the least power overall in terms of percentage who believe it. But I
People
believe...
who don't know jack shit.
No. We already covered that one in like the people who are like in the fear part. The vetted interests. People who
Sorry, what interest?
Vetted interest. People who would gain something from denying climate change.
Ooh.
The conspiracy part of our side, basically.
Fair enough.
Like, what percentage do you believe? Because we can talk about it a little bit, because there's definitely the chance that the people who have businesses related to things like fossil fuels and whatnot have likely some kind of vetted interest in wanting to deny climate change instead of accepting different forms of energy, especially the renewable kinds.
Well, I mean, if history is anything to go off of, wasn't the paper industry popularized by stomping over hemp production? So totally, if business can continue profiting off of oil and fossil fuels, then yeah, I could definitely see people siding with those corporations so that they can make a profit off of it.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, but what kind of other corporations would benefit from that? I would imagine like the Republican parties, some specific sectors of the Republican Party would benefit from that, right?
Well, I imagine anyone who drills oil would benefit off of
that too.
Hope that people keep buying fossil fuel burning cars, so that oil stays relevant.
So certain countries and their economic growth that's dependent on oil might be entire sectors.
Exactly.
That would be. That's a fair portion of people. But yeah, then there's also, like I mentioned before, the Republican Conservative Party in particular that would have a vested interest in trying to deny climate change, because they would benefit from it because the people who follow them generally believe that as well.
Very true, yep.
And if you say that you accept climate change, you lose a ton of voters on the Republican conservative side in general. So part of the conversation has to be there.
And I don't know if you've heard anything about it, but there's a big pipeline thing going up here in Canada, and the Conservative Party.
I've heard of it.
You've heard of it? Excellent. Yeah, I know. I think last year it was, people in BC were protesting the pipeline because the Keystone pipeline, because it would cause significant damage to the ecosystem, and that's a big factor of why in Alberta the two previous people running for provincial elections got in because they were focused on bringing the people the Keystone Pipeline.
Hmm. Hmm.
So government or specific governments might be more inclined to uh, speak out against climate change because they have investments in oil.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. But is there anyone else who would really benefit from that sort of thing exactly? Because Trump is clearly, I'd imagine, one of those people who believes that economically denying climate change is better because that way we can ruin China or whatever. And I don't know. I don't know what his plan is really, but if he has a plan, or maybe just denies it because he's an idiot. But I believe it's more of a vested interest thing for him.
No, that actually sounds pretty plausible.
Yeah.
I mean, I I'm trying to think of a big business that would actually have huge stakes in this, because I mean, gun control is the problem that's
Cars,
important
oil.
because the NRA is a
That's a different. Ooh, gun control. That's a topic.
that is a
That is
topic.
a topic. Anyways, yeah, okay, here's the thing. When it comes to the percentage of people that believe this, I believe it's quite low. However, the effect it has, I believe it's much higher.
Okay, so this one's going to be a bit different. It's what's the percentage of people who believe it versus what's the percentage of the
Yeah, I believe that's probably the best way to put it.
Okay.
What do you think?
I'm thinking for effect 60% for people who actually believe it. 30%.
You believe that the people with vested interest would be about 30% of the people who are denying climate change?
No, no, you're right. Maybe 15.
Fair enough. I would have gone with the effect. I'd put it around the same, somewhere between 60 and 65%. And the quantity, like the percentage wise, is honestly, I'd say around like 7%. Like, I think it's a very low amount of people who just happen to have a lot of power.
That's fair, but I mean, depends on the. I'd say it also depends on the political futures. So like if Canada becomes conservative and whatnot, I think it could raise because Alberta has a huge stake in oil.
I see. Well then, conclusion time for this subtopic because we've been on it for way too long. About an hour of just this subtopic in particular.
Fair enough. Wow.
Yeah. So, I suppose our conclusion then would be about like 30-ish% of people believe it because of religious reasons. About 50% of people, because there's an overlap as well, believe it due to like fear reasons. The conspiracy theorists, what did we agree on again?
25%.
Yeah, 25-ish.
Yeah.
25-ish percent.
There's a lot of overlap with fear and religious. So
yeah,
you said 5.
It's more like a Venn diagram in that case. Then there's also the last one, the vested interest things, where I think it's more around 10% in our average.
Yeah, no, that sounds right.
Yeah, it's very close to 100%, surprisingly, but there is overlap, and that's important to remember.
Absolutely.
Kind of freaky that. Well.
Yeah.
there is also the next subtopic, which is kind of important as well because it's more of a recent event than anything else. Is why the hate for this Greta oh God, how do you pronounce her fucking name again?
Greta Thunberg.
Greta Thunberg. Okay, let's just I don't mean to like insult her in any way whatsoever. It's just all I can say is Greta Thunderbird. Like, I'm serious. I just can't any other way. Plus,
no worries.
Thunderbird sounds cool anyway, so I believe Thunderbird is fair enough. I'm gonna call her Thunderbird. Why not?
Yeah, it's not like you're trying to offend.
It also sounds cool.
That too.
So
I'm gonna
hypothesis. Yeah.
I'm gonna say because of the denial. Like, so we've already touched in on that. I think fear, invested interest, and religion / conspiracy is why she's gotten hate.
Now, that is a fair point, and I don't completely disagree with that. However, I'm going to add a bunch more onto my own hypothesis in that case.
Sure.
I do believe it has to do a fair amount with the climate change denial, but I also believe it has to do with the fact that she is a young autistic girl, first of all. So, a young autistic girl, let's just put it that way, triple minority, telling world leaders what to do, in the sense that they need to do something about the situation, right?
Absolutely.
The fact of the matter, she basically went into a troll battle on their Twitter bio with President Trump. Says a lot about her capacity to infuriate these world leaders just by existing. However, I guess my hypothesis in the end would be a mix of this individual who should not be on this stage is speaking on this stage to people who supposedly, quote unquote, deserve to be on this stage, threatening their view of their own position and pride, as well as the denial factoring into the common denominator, where it will generally focus on her other traits instead of her message.
That's hot. No, that's actually a great hypothesis.
That's my hypothesis, and let's discuss it for now. I guess let's discuss our hypotheses because, the climate change denial I agree with, but for the most part, but I believe it has to do more so with the concept that this person shouldn't be here. That's what
She's
it
thrown
seems
down
like.
the gauntlet and has challenged world leaders.
Yeah, it's like they feel. I think this is the part that gets to me. It almost feels like they seem threatened by her, because this is very defensive behavior.
Yeah, it is.
If they truly didn't feel any threat from her, they would have just left it at that and just not talk about it. Period. Wouldn't have commented on it. No one would comment on it. If they really didn't take her seriously, they wouldn't have said anything. I believe that they're taking this as a serious threat.
That wouldn't surprise me. And she's gone on a tour, speaking out about climate control, and has been gaining a lot of traction. So while I say she's getting a lot of hate, she's getting a lot more support, and she's doing a lot of good with it.
You want to know what's funny? This is something I've been noticing for like the past month and a half or so since Thunderbird has become a thing, and it's like no one's attacking the ideas. Like so far they're all attacking her, but I don't remember seeing many people actually get mad at her ideas or message so far. Like I haven't seen that. There's been tons of memes. There's been tons of people saying that, oh, she's 16, therefore she should be in school, or shouldn't have an opinion on this. She doesn't know what she's talking about, which is bullshit, by the way. 16-year-old people can have just as much opinions as you or I. They can know exactly what they're talking about. I knew just about as much about climate change when I was 16 as I do now. In fact, I barely know much more than I did back then, because I took it seriously back then enough to actually research it to the point where I was well versed in the concept. I knew enough about it at that point.
Yeah, no.
The rest of it
For
is more
sure.
so the methods to which you could learn to prevent it is the stuff that I've been learning over the years instead. So, oh dang, that's crazy. Yeah, it's just, why do they feel threatened by this little girl? Like, guys, seriously, you're grown-ass people making fun of a little autistic girl on purpose. You'd think they'd see how stupid they're making themselves look by doing this and complaining about it. Because one of the primary complaints I see is, why isn't a scientist saying this? Well, to put it bluntly, the scientists have been talking about it for fucking years. For decades, even.
Yeah.
But they've been ignoring them, so that argument goes completely out the window. She even says, listen to the scientists.
On that note, I think it's because people expect this from scientists, whereas they don't expect it from 16-year-olds. So the fact that a 16-year-old is taking a stand isn't your typical woke kid, and is making a very, very valid point. I think it's maybe waking people up, and they're not liking it.
And is probably also making them feel like idiots.
Well, I mean, they can hide in the behind their computer screens anonymously. So while they feel like idiots, they probably still feel safe.
But yes, but that's the thing. That's called cognitive dissonance, though. They feel safe, but they feel like idiots at the same time for having to call out a little girl.
Right.
So that cognitive dissonance is probably causing them a great amount of discomfort, which is why they're probably going to call out a little girl. Right? I say little girl, but she's close enough to being an adult, honestly.
Yeah, at young adult.
Young adult, yeah, it's probably better. She's young. And young people have passion. But that doesn't imply that she doesn't know anything, because that's what a lot of critics have been pointing to her as being, like a figurehead of sorts, which, fair, she might be, but that's not really the point here. She may be a figurehead, but she probably knows exactly what she's talking about, because this isn't exactly rocket science.
Right.
It's pretty elementary stuff, and if you can't understand the elementary school stuff, you might as well go back to school.
Yeah, no. That pretty much sums up my thoughts.
There's also, like, it just feels so weird. I understand, like, there's also an argument that is, like, saying that she should be in school and whatever. And then forgetting that that's a freaking red herring and it doesn't actually mean anything. It doesn't go contrast her message. It doesn't even contrast her. It's just saying that she should be in school. Okay, cool. You're just making her point for her. She's not in school because she's worried about the world exploding. Congratulations. You've worried kids so much that they're willing to skip school just to tell you to stop being fucking stupid. That's how crazy the world has gotten at this point. Great large movements of kids skipping school for this.
Yeah, no. And honestly, I think it's good that people got mad. It's good that people did all this because it's allowed so much more good to happen and come from this.
Yeah, I
As
guess bad publicity is still publicity, right?
bad publicity is good publicity.
Hmm. That's fair, and she's gotten plenty of good publicity too. So it's actually kind of surprising how they're digging their own graves in this case. It's like they're just spreading the message more by making fun of it. Kind of like
Exactly.
kind of like how we got Trump into office by making fun of him so much.
Yeah, unfortunately,
Yeah,
that wasn't.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing where you just got to learn and adapt to that sort of thing because yeah, that's how that shit works a lot of the time. So, well, in this case, hopefully it's for the better.
Absolutely.
It's very strange. What's the reason for the hate then? Like, is it because they feel threatened? Is it because
Threatened.
they feel like idiots? Is it because
I
they
think
have a sudden sense of impending doom? What is it?
I think it's a bit of all three. I think the existential crisis, the being threatened, and on top of it, the denial. Like she's opening eyes. So I think a lot of it falls onto the existential crisis.
Yeah, when people in the conservative Republican camp actually speak out against Trump to support this little girl, Swedish girl, talking about, was she Swedish or was it a different country? Anyways, when this girl talks about this stuff and Republicans, conservatives speak out on her behalf on Twitter, you know shit's getting serious. Like, ideas are seriously shifting.
Absolutely.
It's actually kind of terrifying to, not like terrifying in both the good and the bad way. Like just how quickly.
It's awe-inspiring.
Perhaps, but it
No,
also,
I'd
but the problem is, it worries me in the sense that it could go the opposite direction just as quickly.
And that's a fear. That's a fair fear.
And what scares me even more is that The Simpsons has once again predicted the future.
Oh.
Oh yeah, there is an episode where Lisa Simpson talks about climate change in front of world leaders.
Yeah. Their batting average is pretty good right now.
Yeah, please stop. Please stop. Please stop. I don't want your crazy shit to come to life, please. Please, Simpsons, stop being so good at this. Like, why does satire have to be so close to reality? It hurts.
Man, they should become like political forecasters or something.
Oh, you have no idea how that might actually help. If they actually were able to channel that in such a productive way.
Well, I mean, they predicted Trump happening like 16 years.
I think at that
Before
point it
it
was a
actually
joke.
became
I think at that point it was a joke, like just straight up a joke. I don't know how. Obviously, I'm just joking. They didn't actually predict that sort of stuff. They have a terrible batting average of 2 out of like 20,000. So they have terrible percentage of prediction. But it's still like kind of creepy to think about how The Simpsons kind of reproduced it exactly.
That's fair.
Yeah, it's kind of strange like that. Yeah, I guess we've basically concluded in that sense then, because we seem to agree that it has to do mostly with like the fear,
Existential
the existential crisis causing cognitive dissonance, while at the same time the world leaders in themselves, and particularly anyone who happens to support them, feels threatened by this little girl. By it just feels so sad to say that, right? Like it's like they feel threatened by her. And what was the last one? There was another reason. Denial was
what
it?
was it? Denial, yeah.
Yeah, the global change denial people. Yeah, overall, that seems to be like the main primary reason, and also makes them feel like an idiot
Yep.
if they happen to attack her and not her message. I get the feeling that they're suffering from cognitive dissonance.
Sounds about right.
Because if you have to resort to ad hominems, then I will not be able to take those people seriously. That's the thing.
I mean, can you take them seriously now?
No, not really. Not at the
They're
moment.
making fun of a little girl. Or, sorry, a young adult.
I mean, yeah, it's fair. It's making fun of a girl her age is not exactly mature for people who are above 30 and possibly above 40 in a lot of cases. Especially people who are clearly very well off.
Well, you know what they say, the rich gets richer, and if something gets in the way. Yeah, apparently it leads to this. But I think the important...
It makes me laugh imagining Trump at his keyboard trying to be clever, trying to troll Thunderbird here. And like I always imagine for some reason that if Trump is using a keyboard, he only types with like his 2 index fingers and nothing else. Yeah, right. Like for some reason, that's just like the instant thing that comes to mind.
No, that's funny.
For all I know, he might not be like that, but Jesus, it's a convincing image.
like behind his Cheeto smeared screen.
For some reason, he's just like a weird, fat, lazy nerd. Somehow.
President by day. Fat,
sweaty, creepy, trolly nerd at night. Somehow. I don't know what he does to change that much, but whatever. Yeah, I think we've come to the conclusion at this point for that.
Absolutely.
Now comes...
I think now the important thing
one
is to move on to
the last
her message.
One.
What can we do to change?
This is the hard one for me because based on hypotheses, it's very difficult because like one of the primary criticisms against the Thunderbird that we were discussing prior was she doesn't provide any solutions, which is fair because she's saying look to the scientists for solutions. They're the people who actually know about this stuff. But people don't seem to really agree about what the scientists could do about it. So my hypothesis would be high restrictions on fossil fuel usage within the US, China, and I believe Russia was it, but the other highly emission producing countries in the world, which are primarily China and the United States, as well as higher regulations on plastic usage with more recycling emphasis, as well as an agricultural change, because the meat production cycle has a tendency to produce way more methane into the air than is generally sustainable, and that is also almost a major issue within the US in particular. So it would have to be a reduction of those things, as well as renewable fossil fuels, which can vary between solar, wind, water. Some people want to go with geothermic. Then there's also the nuclear.
I've also heard of thorium.
Thorium is a weird one as well. And
hemp.
And fuel-producing bacteria, which create clean gasoline. It's like there's a whole bunch of things that you could do that with, right? But that's my
Right.
hypothesis on the concept. Like it has to do it has to be a mix of all of these innovations, and we have to restrict fossil fuel use in those two primary countries, which are producing like 80% of the emissions. The rest will have to go eventually too, but first and foremost, we gotta stop those guys. It's like gotta stop the two giants before you start worrying about the henchmen.
Exactly. And you know what? Even just doing your part, like anyone's part, this is my adding on.
Mhm.
Doing your part to reduce energy consumption, like even turning off lights, not littering, picking up garbage, anything to improve the Earth's condition is for the better.
Yeah, I agree on that. That's like a good add-on because like as minimal as your changes are, if everyone were to do it, it would add up to at least a significant portion of maybe 10% of the problem, right?
Exactly.
Approximately, assuming everyone did it. So yeah, I guess that would be the hypothesis. Do we really need to discuss this all that much? Honestly, I think we kind of agree on the at least the individual parts thing.
I don't think we need to discuss it. I think this is kind of like the end thoughts. Like,
Yeah, at this point, it
what
feels more like
can you do?
what can you do about it? Yeah, well, yeah, in that case, yes. But what about the other solutions, like the whole renewables and nuclear and whatnot? What do you think about that?
Oh, I fully agree with the renewables.
But yeah, but
the
which
one
ones do
problem-
you support? Which ones do you think should have less credence, etc.?
I watched the I've got a few. Thorium. I watched the Salmonella video on that, and if it acts like nuclear energy but is more safe, I think that might be a better alternative than uranium energy.
Yeah, that's fair.
After that, I think what is it? Electric energy, like electric cars. I think if car manufacturers could improve upon current designs and make them be able to run faster, more people would be making the switch.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
Like even right now, lots more people are buying electric cars than they did, like, let's say 10 years ago. So hopefully in the next 10 years, even more people are making a switch, or even just switching over to hybrids.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we could look into things like the Tesla cars and things like that. There's a lot of variability and possibility there.
For sure. I got told one time by a coworker that using hemp to replace a lot of our plastics would probably be a good step in the right direction. Like apparently you can use hemp to make hempcrete, which would be a replacement for concrete.
I've heard about that. I've also heard like the use of fungus as a possible substitute for those sorts of things. Because apparently it makes a sturdy, lightweight material.
Exactly, and that sounds good.
I personally I highly support like nuclear and things along those lines. I understand that people are worried about its safety, but it's like the risk of a short distance issue versus the very real, very high risk of something affecting the entire world. Kind of easy to measure the priorities here, right? At least that's the way I think about it.
And that's a fair thought. The only thing is when let's say a plant get damaged, or let's say use a Fukushima if you Fukushima meltdown as an example. When nuclear plants get damaged by nature, it leads to further damage, if
Hmm.
that makes sense. Like even looking at Chernobyl, the the Earth is still feeling effects from that, and if we could find a more safe direction to go, that would probably be the better idea.
Yeah. There's also like things like wind and solar power. I understand the appeal, but at the same time, it's like it doesn't feel like they'd be able to compensate sufficiently unless it's in specific areas where the nuclear power just doesn't happen to arrive. You know.
That's fair.
Otherwise, it takes up too much space. Like I've seen those windmills, man. Like I've gone to the north of my country, and they generally have a lot of those there. And
Oh, they're massive.
oh, they're gigantic. Like holy shit. That feels like looking at a freaking skyscraper. Just looking at one of those things, and they're moving.
Yeah,
It's freaking terrifying, man. It's like watching a mech.
absolutely.
It's like watching a mech fetus.
A mech fetus.
Yeah, it's really terrifying.
Well, I'm not sure where else we could go. I mean, we both agree there's a lot of things we could do. Um, I personally, I personally think anything we do is a step in the right direction. Whether it be changing over energy subscriptions, so from fossil fuels to nuclear to electric, solar, wind. That's a step in the right direction. I think if more people contributed to the cause, then that could be a thing. Turning off your lights, very simple stuff builds up.
Mm. I I wish everyone just had dimmer lights, you know?
You know what? I fully agree with.
You get to control the output more, not to mention that if you use dimmer lights more, especially if they're controlled, like the kinds that just sort of automatically do it, you also get better sleep.
Science is now.
Yeah, it really should just become like a common standard to have those sorts of lights doing that sort of thing.
That would be a good step in the right direction.
Hmm. Yeah, it's more of a. Hmm. Yeah, it seems that just like we can do a whole bunch of little things, but there's one more thing that is incredibly important that we haven't addressed as a way that the common man is capable of affecting this sort of change.
What's that?
Vote.
Yes.
Vote for the candidates that promise to, or at least the candidates that you believe to be trustworthy enough and promise to make a significant change in the methods in which we are consuming fossil fuels and etc. You know, the ones that are actually looking into climate change and want to return the U.S. to the what was it called, the France climate agreement, was it? I forget the name.
I don't even know anymore.
It was a climate agreement basically. I know that much. Like where a bunch of countries were in agreement that they would not do too much stupid shit with the whole fossil fuel emissions.
The Paris Agreement?
Yeah, the Paris Agreement. That's what it's called. The Paris Agreement. That's what it's called. Perfect. Yeah, it just seems like the case of there's so much we can do as a democracy, right? But the problem is it has to be the Americans that are doing it, and unfortunately, the two people who aren't American here are the ones talking about it now.
I know.
It's a little bit unfortunate, honestly.
Absolutely. But for anyone who watches this, vote. Vote.
Vote for whoever you think is in the right. That's all I can give you. But you also have to consider all the evidence, and you have to understand that if you disagree with us on the existence of climate change, we don't hate you. We don't think you're stupid. It's completely normal and human to be concerned about these things, which is why we laid them out so thoroughly. Like the different reasons why you might be a climate change denier.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better.
We just want you to be more informed and figure out more about the situation instead of just accepting what feels comfortable. I particularly am talking to those people that are in their little comfort zone with their bias pillows. Those are the people I'm talking to the most.
On their queen size comfort bed, comfort zone.
On their queen size comfort zone. I'd like to think of it as more of a confirmation bed.
No, that's further.
The confirmation bed with their bias pillows and their comfort zone room, where they can believe whatever it is they want to believe. It's very, very much, I'm talking to those people who happen to be concerned about it, and as a consequence choose not to worry about it because they don't think, because it's a discomfort to them. And all I can say to you is humans don't grow without some form of discomfort. There's no such thing as growing without discomfort. You can never really improve upon yourself without admitting your flaws. You have to be capable of admitting to your mistakes and learning from them in order to grow as a person. And hopefully, if you watch this, I hope that whatever you take from this is to do exactly that. Reevaluate the situation, try to understand what it is that the evidence says, try not to go in with preconceived notions, just try finding the truth of the matter, not just what feels good.
Amen.
And then vote for the person that you believe can bring about the change that you expect.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think we're about ready to wrap things up, I think.
Yeah, I think on that note, yeah.
Yeah, because we've been in the middle of conclusion time for a while now.
Despite the rocky beginnings, I think this was a really good episode.
Yeah, we got into some good conversation at some point, and it really started like flowing a little bit better.
Next week, though, China.
Probably we'll probably go for either China or the cancel culture thing, one or the other for sure.
Expect it.
Expect one or the other.
Definitely. And on that note, you have a wonderful night. I'm bouncing out.
And I'm also gonna be leaving soon. So, good night, everyone, or morning, wherever the hell you are. Keep questioning.
Happy good time of day.
Have a good time of day. Keep questioning reality. Always question yourself. Don't trust your own mind. Doubt your own thoughts. Reach for the truth. I guess that's the best way to put it. Reach for the truth.